What's up guys, Noor here and welcome to Book of Showtime Chapter 17. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to leave a like and share this with your friends. And if you have a topic you'd like for me to cover for Book of Showtime, leave it in the comment section down below or anywhere you can reach me on social media or the Book of Showtime Discord. Alright guys, so today we got something a little different, with Book of Showtime. Usually we do a scripted show, but today I decided let's do something a little bit different, a little fun, a little off the beaten track for Chapter 17. I know I said I was gonna take a break, but I'm a little high on Resident Evil right now. It's my, like I said, it's my all-time favorite series. I love it, and Resident Evil 4 was such a masterpiece of a game. And I was initially going to make a video ranking all the RE Engine era games, which would be from 7 to now to 4. But I decided to do this tier making because I'm like, you know what? Why not? Why not talk about all of them? Talk a little bit about each of them as I do this. So let me know what you guys think, and if you want me to do more of these tier maker videos, let me know. They seem like they would be a fun time. And yeah, so let's just get right into it. Let's just get the obvious S tiers. The new Resident Evil 4 remake was fantastic. If I wanted to nitpick at a few things, I gave it a 10 out of 10. If I wanted to nitpick though, I could lower the score, but otherwise it's a flawless game. I loved it. As someone, as Resident Evil 4, the original Resident Evil 4 is my all-time favorite game. Let's put it right up there. Right up alongside Time Splitters. So for that to have it remade, and I felt like even like they cut, I think really just one thing or one major thing was cut. You're gonna hear sirens, I'm sorry. And everything else though was like the areas were like reworked and streamlined and like woven into one. The way it was really masterfully done. So as far as remakes go, it's one of the best. And speaking of remakes, let's put the RE1 remake up there as well, because that is a fantastic game. So now on to everything else. Let's just go in order. So the original Resident Evil thing is, whenever I talk about how you evaluate a game, it's always important to look at when the game has come out. And Resident Evil basically kind of pioneered what was known as survival horror at the time. And I wasn't there. I wasn't even born. Resident Evil came out in '96. It's kind of crazy to think that this series is that old. And as we go through all these games, this series has reinvented itself so many times and has managed to stay relevant. And it's always seems to have succeeded tremendously every time it's reinvented itself. But I digress. I wasn't there at ground zero for the original Resident Evil, but I really enjoyed playing them. They're really fun games. I only played them a couple of times, and I think I've only played the director's cut. I'm not sure. I know I played the director's cut the first time I played through all the way, and I don't know off the top of my head the differences between the two, but I don't think it's major enough that I would separate them. So I'm gonna put them in the A tier. They're the OGs, the torchbearers. Resident Evil 2 is my favorite. It's better. It's not better than 3, I think, in terms of pure gameplay. But I don't know, something about Resident Evil 2, I just like it more. And 3 has Jill, so that's like, there's so many things. There's so many more reasons to play Resident Evil 3 as opposed to 2. But I don't know, 2 I just love a lot. So I'm actually gonna put that one in the S tier. It's still really fun to play. I might play it again soon. I might play 3 again soon, the original 3, just because of how much they botched the remake. We'll get to that later. As for 3, as far as sequels go, you guys know I love well done sequels. It felt the gameplay was a lot more crisp. I know there was like a general conception that they're like, oh, they used the same areas. You were in the RPD for like 10 minutes. And then you left. And then even the RPD in that game was a little different because this was earlier in the Raccoon City apocalypse. But between like the dodging mechanic, the weapons customization stuff that you can get the parts for, ICOPS, the Mercenaries mode was really good. And then of course the major thing being the choices that you can make. It was a really good game. So we're gonna throw that in the A tier. All right, I don't think it's up there for me as far as how much I personally like it, but it's a really good game. Resident Evil Survivor is interesting because it's a game that it has no saving. It's first person. There's the first person Resident Evil, and I'm not 100% sure. I think you can use gun con with it. I'm not 100% sure. I know in Survivor 2, which is right up here, that you can use gun con for sure. But the original one, it only had just the first person, and then you can only play on normal or easy, and I had to play on easy, and I played for like an hour. You have to beat the entire game in one go, by the way. You can't just save. You could state save, but I was playing on PS3. I have the copy somewhere around here still, but I mean, if you're a streamer or a content creator, then yeah, maybe this is something that you would play just to goof around with. But as far as if you want to play some of these Resident Evil games, that's definitely one that you can outright skip. Especially like those older first-person games tend to age pretty poorly. So you know what, we're gonna throw this in the F tier. It doesn't need to be played. Code Veronica, interesting. This feels like the cult game within the Resident Evil canon. Like I feel like everyone who likes this game really likes this game. Not to say that I don't like the game, but I don't really like it. It's a pretty, it feels like it's not a spin-off per se, because it's definitely a main game, but it's, when you look at how the game is structured and kind of the feel of the game, it does feel spin-off-ish and experimental. And it definitely had some new things going. It was definitely like the way like the camera would pan in certain locations that stayed with you. That was new. The dual wielding weapons aiming at two separate enemies, that was different, you know. And some of these sections of the game, it was a really cool game, you know. But I just don't feel what everyone else feels when they play this game. Like I played it. Did I play it last year or the year before? I think I played it 2 years ago. And it was a game. It's like, yeah, if you're a Resident Evil fan, this is one you can skip. But it's not like you should skip it. It's just if you want to skip it, but you should play it though. You should play all these Resident Evils. Don't listen to me. I'll put this in the C tier though. I never played Gun Survivor, so that's gonna go in NA. Gaiden, I played. If you remember, back when I was streaming, whoever was there, I did play Gaiden for about an hour and change, and it was something, you know. It was a unique game because the combat wasn't like you would think. Like you see a couple spots later, we have Resident Evil Dead Aim, but Dead Aim was like the DS port of the original Resident Evil. Gaiden didn't play like that. It was just basically like a top-down overworld, and then when you got into, it's like a random encounter type thing, and it's like you have to hit this, it was like this timing mechanic. You have to time this dot in this box that was moving on the screen, and that's how you would shoot zombies. It was different, you know. It was unique, but it's, again, it's one of those, it's kind of like Survivor, where it's, if you're going to play it, you're just playing it kind of just to have fun or just to goof around. Don't take it seriously. And I remember my friend Vinicia, who requested me to play it, she said she had went and played it more and says it does not improve, it doesn't get better, so just don't bother going back. Resident Evil 0, this is an interesting game because Resident Evil to me has always been about the replayability, and when I played Resident Evil 0 again, I just didn't have fun. And also this game, I really don't believe it's canon. Like I think it is canon, but it doesn't make sense to me. It feels very shoehorned into the timeline, and it's because the stars in the first Resident Evil, it's like, oh, Bravo team's helicopter crash, we gotta go after them, and then it's like this whole game is like a whole day passes before that, and you go to this facilities and you go all over the place and do all this. I'm like, oh man, it just doesn't really fit in the story. And then the gameplay is okay, but the lack of an item box really makes the backtracking extremely tedious. It's definitely a unique game within the series, but it's just, I don't know. I played it twice, start to finish, and I don't. If I never play it again or never feel like obligated to play it again, that's, you know, I'm not missing anything. I'm going to put this in the D category. Although Billy Cohen is pretty cool. Dead Aim, I didn't play. That was on the DS, and I don't know if you can play it anymore now that the 3DS shop is closed. I don't know if this was ever made available digital, but you can't get it anymore. So, but it's a remake of the original Resident Evil. You can emulate it possibly. I don't know how good DS emulation is, at least original DS. I know 3DS is still a little experimental on some games, but that's that. Outbreak is going to also go in the NA because we recently talked about that in chapter 16, where games that I think need to get a remaster. And Outbreak, I never got the online going because I just didn't have the online. I don't know what you needed to go online on the PlayStation back in the day. I never knew anyone who went online to game back in the day, other than if you were on PC, because every computer was connected to the internet. That was the main purpose of computer, was surfing the web. But no, I never played the Outbreak. No, but if any of my friends are watching this and they want to play the split screen mod, Dear Yoko, I think it's called, hit me up. We can definitely do that. I'm a little upset I haven't done it by now, truth be told, but it is what it is. Umbrella Chronicles. I really like this game. It was for the Wii. It was a arcade shooter. It was on rail shooter, and it was in the bridge telling of 0, 1, 3, and then there was an original story at the end, and then also each of the main games had like little sub stories. So I know Resident Evil 3's sub stories were Hunk and Ada, like Ada escaping from a raccoon after the tyrant beat the crap out of her, and I know Wesker's after he gets killed by the Tyrant, he has a sub story too, which that made me really like Wesker, especially the 2 fights at the end against the Ivans. And I think the mission was like the downfall of Umbrella or something like that. But I like the Umbrella Chronicles. I know it's obviously it's a Wii game, so not many people brought it. It's on PS3. You can use it with the Move, or you can just use it with a controller. And then it's on the PlayStation Premium. That thing, the PlayStation Plus Premium, where you whatever the highest tier is, I think that gets you the retro games you can play, or rather you can stream Umbrella the Chronicles games and play them with controllers. So go ahead and do that. And I think they probably don't. You can emulate them through Wii or PS3 as well, because those emulators work pretty well. So I like them. I'm just gonna put it in the C category because it is still an on-rails game, and the thing is, compared to other on-rail shooters, it's really slow. Like, I had House of the Dead 2 and 3, and my cousin, we played House of the Dead 2 and 3, and then we went and played Umbrella Chronicles, and it was like, yeah, let's go back and play House of the Dead. This is really kind of boring after playing a fast-paced zombie game just to go to that. Resident Evil 5. This game has a lot of sentimental value to me because I've beaten it with about a dozen different people, and some of them multiple times. Like, I know I beat it 4 times with my or I guess six times total with my brothers, Nick and Weaver. I beat it with my friend Amy, my friend Zorky, a couple times with my friend Dennis, my friend Andreas Sithi. So it's just like, I feel like if you really want to be, if you know we're going to be friends, it's because we probably played Resident Evil 5 together. Although I am open to playing Resident Evil 6 again if anybody wants to play Resident Evil 6. Though it would be on Xbox if anything, or PC. So sorry, PlayStation users. I'm gonna put 5. I'm actually gonna put it to B. It'll be our first B game, because I feel like everything else on this list, for the most part, well, at least everything C and above, has some elements of horror to it, or, you know, minus Chronicles because of it's a little different. Because that's the only spin-off game that I have up here. All these games kind of have elements of horror or creepiness or tension to them. Resident Evil 5 is very straightforward, and then it's co-op, so there's really no fear or tension in that game at all. But the Mercenaries and the music were pretty awesome, the 2 M's. Dark Side Chronicles, I'm going to put this in NA. I didn't finish it, but what I did play, it was okay. I think it was a little better than Umbrella Chronicles, but I can't say for sure because, you know, I didn't finish it. Mercenaries 3D. Unfortunately, the 3DS eShop has closed down, so the only way if you want to legally get this game is finding it at a store, and if that you'll be lucky if that, because, you know, Nintendo prints like 10 copies of every game that comes to the system. This game, I'm very disappointed it has not received a port to Switch or even like a newer version of it, because why not? As far as a mobile game goes, this would be awesome on phone, but it was awesome on the DS, because I remember getting a 2DS. This was the first game I got, and it was awesome. It lended itself so well to, like, you know, I'm on a train for about 20 minutes, half an hour, bust out this, play a couple rounds of Mercenaries. Fun. It's a fun game. I'm gonna put it in the C category because it's been, you know, it's tied to Nintendo, and you really can't get it anymore legally, but it is good. It's, again, one of those games that is really good for what it is. Not gonna blow you away, but it's a really fun game. Resident Evil Revelations. I feel like this is the game to me that if somebody is getting into Resident Evil for the first time, this is a game you can start them at. Like, hey, you can play Resident Evil Revelations. Now, my opinion on that has changed a little bit post RE7 with all the games, because it's a lot more of an accessible play style. But still, Resident Evil, I think, has a good blend of like the old and new. There's like, it's like you're in an isolated, claustrophobic situation. You know, there's tense moments. I feel like the enemy design fits the theme well, the aquatic theme well. There's some pretty good scary moments, and you play as Jill Valentine. I mean, what else do I have to say on this game? It's in the A category for me. I really enjoyed it. I played it 3 times, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly each time. It's a great game. ORC, interesting. Now here's the thing with ORC. It's a garbage game, but because I'm playing it with my friend Amy, I'm actually enjoying it a little bit. But it is just it's trash. And if it wasn't like, if it didn't get that 60 FPS like frame boost on Series X, I probably would not be playing it because it is such a terrible game. On paper, when I first read about this game when I was a kid, damn, this game came out when 2012, and I'm like, oh man, this game's awesome. You're playing as Umbrella during the operation, doing this, and then you get the game and it's like, this is absolutely terrible, and nobody should play it. So it's going right in the F tier. I don't want to talk about this game anymore. Resident Evil 6 is an interesting game because for a long time I didn't like it. It was the furthest we've gotten away from what I felt a Resident Evil should be in terms of philosophy. of going about constructing a game like you know how we've gotten Resident Evil in the past. It was very far away from that. It was not scary. It didn't have any real puzzles or like it didn't have anything that really made Resident Evil, you know. It's just, you know, over time I've softened my stance. It is a really fun game. And the Mercenaries is really good. I think it has the best Mercenaries in the series, and the way the combat works in terms of like kind of like there's an emphasis on the melee and doing the sprinting attacks and all that. So the way you move and the way the combat works, it works extremely well for the Mercenaries. But as far as everything else is about, like kind of having that feel of Resident Evil, it's just, I don't know. It didn't do it for me. But it's still, to me, I think this is a really good game, though. I'll put it in the C category. Revelations 2, another interesting game. I liked Revelations 2. And what I like about all the Capcom spin-offs is that they're really different from the main games and very experimental. And it's interesting because some of the mechanics of stealth that you see in Revelations 2 are featured in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Like the crouching, you know, sneaking up on enemies, stuff like that. That kind of started in Revelations 2. And I just, you know, it's one of those games I want to replay Revelations 2, but at the same time, I kind of don't. I would like to play with somebody, but then I'd have to buy it on PC and Parsec, and there's no native online. And it's silly that this game did not have online co-op for the story. The raid mode was pretty solid. Other than that, no, I haven't felt like going back to replay the game. But I really like the game. I like the way the game is structured. It feels like Resident Evil 0, but better, because obviously it's all the improvements. I think it's what Resident Evil 0 was 02 and this was 2015. I like the episodic format as well, the mystery format, like how you're playing as Claire and Moira, and then 6 months later you're playing as Barry and the little girl, Natalia. I thought that was a really cool thing, and things you did in the past would influence the future. I thought that was unique. The game was really cool. We're gonna throw you in the B category. It's a really solid game. And also it wasn't too expensive because, like I said, it's episodic, so even if you just buy one episode and get the raid mode too, you get a lot of content out of that one purchase. This might be a hot take, but I think Umbrella Corps was actually a pretty, for what it was actually not a bad game. I actually had a lot of fun playing it. Was it a very good polished game? Absolutely not. Would I rather play a lot of other shooters? Yes, for sure. But this game, I don't know, it was pretty fun for some reason. It was garbage, but it was fun. I don't get it. That's really all I can say about it. It's gonna go in the D tier. No, not the F tier. Resident Evil 7. So now we're in the RE Engine era. Resident Evil 7 I was really paranoid about. And I was paranoid about Resident Evil 7 because, you know, a lot of the early footage, if you go back and watch some of those early trailers and clips, it felt like this game was just trying, like they were trying to make Resident Evil capitalize on like this wave of like Outlast and Amnesia-esque games that like dominated YouTube and Steam in like the 2010s, like the mid 2010s. Because that was what was really popular with all the YouTubers playing those scary games. You know, that's how I found PewDiePie. I started playing Amnesia and Outlast, and I was worried. But then all of a sudden, it's like something just clicked. I was all for the game, and let me tell you, this game. You know, the first 2 times I played the game, which, you know, the worst things I think I did with Resident Evil 7 was stream them. When I finally sat and played the game for myself and really took the game in, this game is probably the game when you want to talk about sound design, because I played Resident Evil when I played it 3 times. Even when I was playing it for the 3rd time, when I would hear these noises, and I would still turn around and look, because that entire residence was alive. Everything creaked and groaned and shook in just the right way, and it was perfect, and it touched up on all the phobias. It was a really good game, and I felt like this was a great way to take Resident Evil. Once again, like I said earlier in the video, where they reinvent themselves. I felt like this was a tremendous way to take Resident Evil into like a new generation. You know, you had a new engine, new generation of gamers. It was awesome. I remember that. I have a picture, if I can go and find it, of me when I went into the early release to get the Resident Evil 7, the collector's edition that came with the Baker's residence. I still have the Baker's residence sitting up top of my game shelf with my Marcus Phoenix ink and my Ghostbusters Ecto 1 Funko Pop. But no, Resident Evil 7 is awesome. And, you know, the last time I played it, I really took my time and explored the mansion. It's like, that's just a great game, man. I'm going to put you in the, you know what? I think I'm going to put it in the S category, truth be told. It's up there. It's an all-time great. It's a top 5 to me. This is probably this is probably a good top 5 to have for both 4s, 1 remake, 2, and 7. That's a good top 5. Resident Evil 2 Remake. So you guys know I'm a huge Resident Evil 2 fan. As you see, it's in the S tier for me. I really enjoyed this game. The one thing that I wish they did different was have a little bit more unique occurrences between the two stories. Like, I want, like, you know, when you're playing Claire story or Leon's story, it'll be something really different. I feel like they were just there was obviously the major differences in some of like the characters and the locations, but aside from that, it's almost overall kind of the same. And I felt like when you played Resident Evil 2, the original, I felt like there was a lot more different in the stories than it was in 2. But 2 was great. I loved playing it. I loved exploring the RPD. The game felt scary, which is something, you know, again, we're in like the scary era of Resident Evil, where we're starting to feel fear when we play these games. And Resident Evil 2 was awesome, you know. Again, also great sound design, great graphics, great attention to detail. I was so happy to play this game. And also to kind of have one of my all-time favorite games get remade and made more accessible, because like if any of my friends tried to go back and play the original Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 1 remake, Resident Evil 2, they'd probably give up after like 30 minutes. So now that people can kind of experience some essence of this game, you know, that's cool for me. So I'm gonna put that in the A tier. Resident Evil 3 remake. So initially I was worried when I saw that this was announced, because I thought Capcom saw how good Resident Evil 2 remake and rushed to get 3 out. And then I saw, oh no, these were developed at the same time. But then when the game came out, I'm starting to think that they weren't, and they absolutely did rush, because on paper, the Resident Evil 3 remake had a lot more potential for change and growth and being a better game than 2 had. Honestly, 3 should be in the S tier, but it's not going to be in the S tier, and it's not going to be in the A tier either. They took away, hi Sirens, they took away the choice system, which was the main thing in the game. They cut the park, they cut the clock tower, which I'm not sure how I feel about the clock tower getting cut, because I meant no giant spiders, so I actually might be fine with that. But they cut a lot of sections of the game, and I felt like the game was just really short. I mean, it was like 4 hours and change vanilla. You know, the very first Resident Evil was a tick over 4 hours for me vanilla. I mean, I know I played the remake, so I knew most of the stuff, but still, you know, that game felt like the game was like just rushing to get through it itself for some reason, which made no sense to me, because there was a lot of things. And sirens are going in now. Maybe they don't like my take on Resident Evil 3, but I'm sorry. I felt like it could have been a lot better, and how they just worked on it for just maybe even, I think another year, honestly. Let's be real here. Another year would not have killed them, you know. And there's also a stretch where we've had, in 2019 we had 2, in 2020 we had 3, and then we had Village in 2021. So that's a lot of Resident Evil. That's a lot of AAA title in 3 years. But no, 3 was a disappointment. It's still a solid game, but just what it could have been, you know, that's why it finds itself in the C tier. And then also, at the same time, if they knew they were making Nemesis at the same time they were doing 2, why was Mr. X so much of a pain in the neck? It just made no sense to me. And I felt like Nemesis was cool, but it's just, I don't know, I feel like he did enough, and he transformed way too early. Resident Evil Resistance. I had to put it in the NA category. I played the alpha, and it made sense, because honestly, Resident Evil Resistance, like, it's an asymmetrical game. Resident Evil tried many times to be multiplayer, as we can see here with Umbrella Corps and Operation Raccoon City. You know, it tried to have a big emphasis on multiplayer in the past, and Outbreak to an extent. This made sense to me, though, because it was not a shooter. You know, it was a asymmetrical game where one person was basically controlling the monsters and setting up traps and stuff like that, and then other people were trying to escape the scenario. I thought that made sense to me. Like I said, it fit the Resident Evil's, you know, horror games. Obviously, or the horror genre lends itself to the asymmetrical style of games a lot better than I think anything else would. I can't try to think of other asymmetrical games that actually aren't horror. But you know, Dead by Daylight obviously is the big one. F-13. You got Outlast Trials on the horizon, and I think it's like what, VHS, Video Horror Society. You know, so there's a lot of asymmetrical horror games like that out there. But Resident Evil, it made sense for them to try that. And I don't even know if I can try it now, because I wonder how many people. Let me check Steam charts. I know after like the first 2 months, and this was during lockdown. So if a game was going to like succeed and it didn't succeed during lockdown, that's a kind of a red flag, if you ask me. But within like a few months, the game was like down to like 200 players. I was like, that is tough. That is really tough. There's Resident Evil Resistance here. That's 15 people playing it. So that's basically 3 lobbies are going on right now on Steam, because you need 4 people on the Survivor side, 1 person to start. Its all-time peak was 4,000 though, so I think that probably must have been around the time where it first launched. But like, yeah, April 2020 was when it launched. It peaked at 4,000. Then the average at the time was also 1,600. In the following month, May, the average dropped to 633, and the peak was 12. By June, it was down to 300, and then July, 280 average players, and then by November, 90 average players. It has not averaged over 100 players since February 2021. And yeah, for an asymmetrical game, that's not good. But I didn't play it much, so I can't really say if it was good or not. But it was a Resident Evil multiplayer game, and maybe it's just bad timing. Maybe if Among Us wasn't, dominating the pandemic, and a lot of other games that resurfaced, like Animal Crossing, maybe Resistance would have been, had a better community. But it's who knows what that game could have been. Village. So here's the thing. While I have 7 here, I'm actually gonna put Village in the A tier. While Village to me is a better game than 7, 7 I think was more important. Like, remember when I started earlier, I wasn't at ground zero for the original Evil, so I don't know how big of a deal it was at the time, but I was here for these games. Resident Evil 7 was huge. That brought Resident Evil back in a big way. Like, it brought it back. Village was awesome though. I felt like it improved over, as far as sequels go, it improved almost everything. Like, the gameplay, the guns were better, the enemy design was better, the locale was better. This was also a game that felt like it was a mess. It felt like it had a big overworld, but the game was only 12 hours, so it felt like navigating it, they did it right. They did like the semi-open world right, where it's like there's stuff for you to explore and get stuff, but it's not like there's multiple like main missions you have to do. It's just go here and get this key, or help this person or something, stuff like that. It's not like you have to do, it's not like a Grand Theft Auto open world or something like that. It's there to explore. So explore it if you want, so you can be better prepared. The Mercenaries, I think, was pretty solid. Felt like it could have been better, and I also felt like the Chris section at the end could have been a little bit longer. Other than that, I don't really have any real complaints with the game per se. It was a really solid follow-up to 7. Really tremendous follow-up. I shouldn't say solid. It was a tremendous follow-up to 7, and I'm actually going to be replaying it soon because of the third-person mode, and then I also got the DLC that you get every unlock. Sorry, Nicholas. I don't feel like going through any struggles, so, or getting good. I'm just gonna spend $5. Well, actually, not $5. I think I got it on sale. And lastly, Reverse. That's an F. Most people writ off Reverse when it was first revealed, and I don't know why you wouldn't. The game looked like, first off, it looked like garbage. Like, it just outright looked like garbage. The models looked like garbage. Like, it felt like they were shrunken, and the map wasn't done to scale. On top of that, they had this weird comic book filter. Honestly, if the game looked better, that would help it out, but not by much. Like, when I actually played it, it's not it's a weird traditional deathmatch, because it's more of a focus on damage done than actually getting the kills, which I guess makes sense in a game like this where you have massive health pools. The DPS that you do is the main thing, but it was garbage, man. It was bad. I don't know why anybody would want to play that game for like more than an hour. And then it's like they had like a battle pass, and it's like, oh, come on, man, you gotta put the battle pass in this game. It's just terrible. So there you go, guys. Here's me tearing at all the Resident Evils, giving them a little bit of a short review. I know I didn't talk about these games as deeply as I wanted to, but there's a lot here. So let me know where you guys would tier your Resident Evils, but this is basically where I would tier mine. I have them all to you. Now, this is also a mixture of how good the game is and how I feel about it personally. Otherwise, I think a lot more games would probably be in the S tier. But as far as how I feel about them, where I feel like they should be, and plus I want to just keep 5. I don't want to oversaturate the S tier. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know where you would tier your Resident Evils. Inshallah, I will see you in the next chapter.